Welcome. Yeah. Hey. Well, thank you so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. And my name is David Goff, and this is Brooke Grandinetti, and we're members of the call committee, and we'll be doing the presentation today. We've got all the call committee here that is here, physically present. And the way we're going to be working this is we're going to run through the results of the CAT survey. We're going to also deal with the listening sessions and digest what we heard from multiple people for that. And then we'll have a question and answer period. So any questions that you have for us, we'll try to answer to the best of our ability. To do this well, I just wanted to set a few guidelines for the question and answer period especially. One is that everybody's input is equally valued, and we just only want to have one person speak at a time. So if you could come to the microphone to pose your question, then we can answer that.
This is being recorded as well. So
This is being recorded, so for anybody who couldn't be here, it'll be on YouTube, and then it'll also be available on the church website later too. Also, please respect each speaker. There's not to have any side conversations, just so it doesn't distract from anybody. And be supportive, not judgmental. And when you come up, try to keep your questions brief. It's not a time to really give a sermon, but just to give your questions and then see what we can do to answer those if we can. And with that being said, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
So
I'm going to, first of all, can you hear me okay? I'm a quiet talker, so if you can't hear me, just raise your, give me the signal. Yes. Okay, I will try. Keep doing it if I trail off, okay? Give me the signal in the back. Okay, now we're going to see if I can work the AV equipment. So let's see. I hear this is the way to do it.
Yep.
It did it. Hooray. Okay. All right, so we're going to start off with a little bit of just telling you what we did, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. All right, so we started this as the call committee because we wanted to understand where the church was at right now. And so we used the survey, as you have heard a couple of times now, called the Congregational Assessment Tool, or the CAT survey. This is a product of Holy Cow Consulting. Turns out that this survey is really widely used. So within the past 22 months, about 250 churches. And it's important to point out these are primarily mainline denominational churches, right? So similar in many ways to our church, right? So this is a good set against which we can compare ourselves to how other churches are doing within this time period. And so the idea with doing this survey, as well as the listening sessions, was to be able to write up the parish profile and portfolio, and that's what we're going to use when we're calling the next rector. And so that's how we set out to do this. So it is important to remember when we're looking at this, that this is a snapshot in time, and very specifically right now. Okay, and so what the results are telling us right now is about our current experiences, perceptions, and where we want to go, our aspirations. So within this context, this is where the results are coming from. All right.
A really good sign is we had outstanding participation. The people from the CAT survey just said, we did a really, really good job. We had 285 responses on the CAT survey. That was based on our average Sunday attendance of about 157 parishioners, means that we had more than like 182% participation. I had to look at the number. So that's great. What that means is that we had a lot of people participating, and they were very excited about that. The survey is considered statistically significant when at least 33% of those who participate at church take the survey. So we did far beyond that, so that's good. What the CAT measures, there's two primary measures that they're looking for. One is the satisfaction or the congregational sense of well-being, peace, and being mission-centered. So how satisfied are our members with fulfilling the mission of the church? The second is energy. It's a persuasive, passionate force of engagement towards the mission. So we're looking at satisfaction and energy are two major things that they measured in that survey.
Deep breath.
All right. So what they found from our survey results was that we're a church that's ready to be transformed. Currently, if you look in the lower left-hand quadrant, we have a recovery church. That little diamond down there, that's where our survey results wound up. It means that we're in a phase where we want to head towards that transformational church, where lives are transformed, the community is transformed. Currently, we're in recovery. And that makes sense. I'll have Brooke speak to that a little bit more too later, but it makes sense considering the disruptions of COVID and the leadership changes that have occurred. And so we took a hit, and it's difficult, but there's good news towards that. Next. A church ready to be transformed, it suggests that we're a recovery church. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh no, that's not good. But it's okay because we have a lot of strengths, and we'll be looking at this. But the results show that, not surprising given the many, many recent transitions and the wake of the COVID restrictions and just the turnover that we've had in the last few years, caused the church to be in upheaval. In this quadrant, we're feeling also low satisfaction and low energy. Again, I saw this and I was like, bummer. This is not, I wasn't very excited about that. However, it shows we have room to grow, and we have a lot of potential here. So our results suggest that we're feeling institutional anxiety and a sense of dissatisfaction and malaise. So people aren't satisfied, and we don't have a ton of energy right now. And I think that's a valid reading of the congregation. So we're not here to sugarcoat it for you. This requires and empowers us to ask the question, how we'll reach the transformation quadrant. So this is the heavy work, the heavy lifting that needs to be done. How do we get from low energy, low satisfaction to high satisfaction, high energy, transformational church? And I know we can do it. So how we do that, that's up to us. All right.
Okay, so take a deep breath, right? That was kind of hard to hear, at least was for us when we were hearing those results. However, as we started to dive into it and take a little bit deeper look at all of the questions on the survey, this gave us hope, because there are many ways that we can view this, and particularly as an opportunity. So many of the results do suggest as well that we remain passionate about our mission as a parish, which is a hallmark of a transformational church, right? So in contrast, so the good part about this, right, is that in some ways there are problems with being in the other quadrants as well, right? So for example, if we were in the upper left quadrant, right, with high satisfaction and this is the lower right quadrant. The high satisfaction, low energy churches are in stasis and decline and are sometimes thought of as Sunday morning centric. That's not where we want to be. The other quadrant, the high energy, low satisfaction churches are chaotic, right? Too much energy, too many things going on and no clear direction. They may be struggling to channel their energy. So what this does is allows us to see our spot as a recovery church as a very clear way and a directionality that we want to go. As David said, we want to head up to the Star of Bethlehem right there, right? So we're heading up to that transformational church, okay? All right. How are we going to get there? All right. So what we found from this, that the key drivers of our satisfaction at St. Bart's are in some ways very much because we are often described as what can be called a clergy-centric church, right? And so what we are looking for is our parish family is really the most satisfied when we are being led by a strong leader, and we like to think of it as a coach. So we really want someone who can help us identify our gifts, bring out the best in everyone, and apply those to ministries. This really isn't surprising. Our previous CAT surveys have shown us the same response, the last 2 CAT surveys that we've done upon call committee rector searches. And so why is this important? So really this is going to be critical for us as we start to interview and call a rector, because we want someone who is comfortable with helping us grow from this starting point of being in a recovery church and a clergy-centric parish. So how do we move into that transformational church quadrant? Okay.
Yeah, also along those lines, that's a big question that we need to determine as a church, as a congregation, is do we want to be clergy-centric? We are currently. That the clergy is driving us, and so we're waiting for somebody to come in and tell us what to do. But do we really want to be that way, or do we want to be ministry-centered, where it's the people who run the church? And how do we get to that point? So our priorities, we're both unique and typical. Our 2 top priorities are shared by almost every parish who took the survey, and that's that they want to grow. These priorities are make necessary changes to attract families with children and youth to our church, which is what the sign of a growing church, and develop and implement a comprehensive strategy to reach new people and incorporate them into the life of the church. So those were the top 2 priorities that came out, but every other church wants those too. So that's not unique, but it is something that was pretty universal. We're also yearning for the opportunity to form meaningful relationships, like small groups and Bible studies, ways to get together and form meaningful relationships. This is a little less common than at most churches, but it's a continuing desire for St. Bart's, especially coming after the COVID isolation and changes that have occurred. Yeah, it was our 3rd priority last time that we took the survey in 2013, 12. We're really ambitious too. I mean, that's we uniquely chose 10 different categories that we viewed as important, which that was a lot. We have to winnow that down because otherwise we could become chaotic. But we do have a lot of things that we do want to change, and in order is from the top, making necessary changes to attract the families, creating more opportunities for people to form meaningful relationships was the 3rd for us, strengthening the pastoral response. All these were important. So you get the idea. You want to look at those for a minute? Yes. Can't see them. I can't make them bigger. I'll read them to you then. Okay, so these were the ones that we all picked in descending order of priority. So the first was to make necessary changes to attract families with children and youth to our church. The second was to develop and implement a comprehensive strategy to reach new people and incorporate them into the life of the church. Third was to create more opportunities for people to form meaningful relationships, for example, small groups, nurtured friendships, shared meals, etc. The 4th was to strengthen the pastoral response of the church in serving people with special needs. The 5th was to develop ministries that work toward healing those broken by life circumstances. The 6th was to work towards renewing and revitalizing the community around the church by building coalitions with partners. The 7th was to provide more opportunities for Christian education and spiritual formation at every age and stage of life. And then the 8th was expand outreach ministries that provide direct services to those living on the margins of society. 9th was strengthen the process by which members are called and equipped for ministry and leadership. And 10th is strengthen the management and support of the persons in various ministries. Now, we could all agree those are all important, all important. The results came from this. There's also many others that we weren't seen as statistically significant below that. But those ones were all considered very statistically significant by the CAT survey committee or analysis team. Okay.
Okay, so one of the other things we were able to do from the survey was break it down into groups or particular demographics that took the survey. And so one of the things that was very clear as a parish, as we said, right, was that we wanted to attract new young families, right? That was our top priority across groups, right? And so, and in fact, 96% of the respondents said this. What was interesting, though, is when we started to look at our demographic that I would probably call within the young family range, so the less than 35-year-olds, it was very clear because two unique priorities popped out from this group. So the two priorities in the under 35 demographic were to expand outreach ministries that provide direct services to those living on the margins of society. And then the other was to work as an advocate for social and institutional change, as that society might better reflect the values of the kingdom of God. So it's interesting because in some ways we did answer our own question. How will we be able to attract those young families? It's by strengthening these particular ministries. So another thing that we found was really interesting is looking at the demographic of the 65 plus community and what one of the top priorities identified there, and in fact the top priority identified in this group, was to strengthen the process by which members are called and equipped for ministry and leadership. And so what this said to us is that in fact we are striving to be that faith family that we aim for in our vision, right? We want to pass on leadership roles to those younger members that we are trying to attract. Okay, so this next one's kind of cool. Bill Zettinger, are you in here? Yeah. Oh yeah, you're going to be happy about this. You're going to like this one. Okay. So it turns out we are what is called, or can be called, a magi church, right? So this was a way of looking at both our theological perspective and our ability to adapt to change. And so let's start with talking about what is a magi church. So a magi church can be described as having a curiosity about their faith and willing to have open conversations about the faith journey, sort of an intellectual approach in some ways. So the way that this was done was to look at both our theological and flexibility on a scale, and so that's what's shown in this little graphic here. So on the axes you have progressive and adaptable, and we are in the quadrant where you see both leaning towards progressive theology and being adaptable and flexible to change. So this is great because as a Magi church, one of the ways that a Magi church at its best can be described as a powerful ally for those who are marginalized and wanting to safeguard those who lack power. Okay. Yeah.
So you see how our little diamond moved up on that? That was good. All right, the theological perspective, I just wanted to break this down a little bit because when the survey that's been around for 30 years and has done thousands of churches, they look at a scale from conservative to progressive. And conservative is more that the Bible is the literal word of God and should not be interpreted in any way other than just the way it's written. And then progressive is that it's inspired by God but written by man and open to interpretation. So where we fell as a overall body was more on that progressive side. It has nothing to do with political determinations, if that makes sense to you guys, because we were worried about using the words progressive and conservative, not worried about, no. So it's just looking at it from a theological perspective, not a political perspective. Our unique strength, though, is our ability to hold diversity under our roof. We have over a quarter of our population, 26% of us, that identify as theologically conservative and love the church. And we have many others who view themselves as progressives and love the church. So that's a really positive strength that we have that diversity under our roof. Our strength is that we're welcoming to all. That slogan on the front entry is shown by that diversity that we have and the ability to not exclude anybody. So that's been a real positive. Also, a huge positive for us is our flexible style. The adaptability scale for churches that are growing and are energetic and there's high satisfaction tend to be adaptable to the needs of the people and check the needs of the people periodically, regularly. On our adaptability scale, we scored very high. Again, look at that diamond, we're doing great. We're more flexible than 75% of churches who took this survey. And growing, vibrant parishes tend to score in the 90th percentile in this measure. So we're very close to reaching that. That's a good sign. All right. Where we're strong, any surprises here? Our music ministry. The music ministry has been the bedrock of this church in the time of transition and provides so much for the social aspects and the worship and keeping the church alive. So huge, outstanding music ministry and participation in that. 90% of us also agree that we're a welcoming, friendly church and community. So it's not perfect, we have work to do. Anytime we feel like we're settled into that, we probably have work to do. We tend to agree that our governance is on track and that there's a belief in the leadership in the vestry, that they're doing their job. And we have a very strong spirituality index indicating that we believe our faith is central to our lives. We're an incredibly generous parish compared to every other parish. We double the national average for giving among all Episcopal churches, and that's by percentage of income to family to giving. So we double that percentage. It's huge. So financially, that's a big strength. We believe that the church offers us ample opportunities to engage in ministries within the world and in the church. So outreach is still a very positive aspect of that. And we're creative in our educational opportunities through Bible studies and children's worship and Sunday schools and all sorts of educational opportunities. So those are all positives. All right, growth areas.
Okay, so clearly we are not that transformational church yet, right? So how can we get there? What areas can we focus on to be able to move into that quadrant we aim to be in, right? So one thing that we found from this survey is that because of all the changes in staff and leadership, we really, as a community, feel a very disturbing amount of conflict. We would like to see a larger body involved in decision making. So perhaps more of you should be running for vestry, is what I heard there. All right. We would like help discerning our gifts that we can offer in ministry. So there was a clear desire there, first of all, for participation in ministry, but to understand where would be the most appropriate places for us to offer those gifts. So while we did say that we were very creative in our educational programming, we wanted to see more. That was an area in which we could grow. And then this we thought was an interesting sort of thought that we needed to carry forward for us. So we did list as a high priority, like we said, to be able to grow our membership that are families with young children. Yet it was interesting because we did not find at all, and in fact there was a leaning against the desire to have children participating in the service. And so what we need to do is take some moments and try to discern what that means. Okay. All right. Good. No? All right. You can do it.
All right, thanks. So who took the survey? A lot of people. And I'm going to read this to you. Over 54% of us come from more than 5 miles away, which is, we're not just a neighborhood church. We're considered a regional church. So that's really good news. It means that there's enough drawing people that they're willing to travel past other churches to come to this one. This offers us huge opportunities for growth, and it's one of the key priorities that we identified of growth. So, we'll now go in. Did you need me to back up to that previous slide at all? You're good. Okay. So we're going to go over the listening sessions. So that was the CAT survey, kind of what we got out of it. Now we're going to go over what we got from the listening sessions, which mirrored much of what the CAT survey interpretation gave us as well. So here's Brooke.
Right, so as David said, right, the CAT survey, those were hard statistical numbers viewed through the lens of interpretation. Now what we've done with the listening sessions these are direct words from your mouths, right? And so we actually had a really great turnout for listening sessions. We probably had over 100 people who attended 9 sessions. So this is really a great lens through which we can view very direct feedback on the questions that we thought were important. Okay, so just as a reminder, in case you weren't able to attend one of these sessions, we asked 4 questions. So the first question was to describe St. Bart's 5 years from now and describe what does it look like. We wanted to know about the qualities and characteristics of the next rector. We wanted you to describe a spiritually nourishing moment or experience at St. Bart's. And lastly, we wanted to know, what does radical hospitality mean to you? So one thing I do want you to know as we're going through the survey, what we are giving you is just a high-level summary of these answers. We received, as I said, well over 100 answers to these questions. And so please know that while we are just giving you the high-level summary, whoever does end up being called as our next rector will get to see all of the responses as they were written and said. So just know that this is a summary. So if you don't see your specific quote in here, don't panic. We've got it. Okay? All right.
All right, the first question was to describe St. Bart's 5 years from now. What's it look like? And almost everybody said more young people with young families, which showed up in the survey as well. Many people were concerned about finishing the redevelopment project, so with a parish hall. That we had a diverse community 5 years from now, with many small groups and a well-run church administration. The church was going to be a larger part of the community, and growth in the preschool, among acolytes, Sunday school, getting youth involved in more ways, and having great music, of course.
Okay, what did you want to see in our next rector? I know you're all going to be really surprised at this first one. It's really unique. No, not. Everybody says this. Everybody wants a great preacher. We want a great preacher. Okay. We want that person to have a lot of energy, be very relatable, be both wise and humble. We also thought it was very important that he was a great administrator, right, who knows how to delegate. And then lastly, that it was pastoral. We found that these were themes that were echoed again and again across all of the listening sessions.
So if Jesus answers our call, we're in good shape. All right, the third question was to describe a spiritually nourishing moment or experience at St. Bart's. And this is so highly individualized, and it was very difficult there was no common thread really on this because everybody's experience is different. And it's interesting when conducting the listening sessions, this was very moving and powerful. This is where testimonials come through, where what brings us to church was this question. How has church sustained us or fed us? Was this question. So very, very moving and powerful in the listening session experience that you can't get from the CAT survey. Just a few examples were the experience of being welcomed when first coming to the church. We're a welcoming church, and the sign is there. People feel welcomed when they come. The music ministry, the music is incredible in the church and feeds us. The quilting ministry is a small ministry that has a huge impact on people throughout the community and beyond, and also provides that social gathering and spreads prayer and love throughout the community. Particular liturgies or services, this was a high point for a lot of people. I was really interested that when I did the youth listening session, many of the youth said this was the Easter services they loved. And I was like, wow, because they're highly impactful, and it's the basis of our faith. The Easter sunrise, the Holy Week, Good Friday, etc. The columbarium is a place of peace for people, and as a lovely space for reflection. Experience in Bible studies, the social interaction that they got in Bible studies, as well as the spiritual knowledge, but also the application of their faith was huge. And participation in community events outside of St. Bart's was another thing that brought them in, whether it was musicals or galas or golf tournaments or what's that? Pride Parade, which just happened yesterday, and working together towards common missions.
All right, so the last question we asked was, what does radical hospitality mean to you? So really the overwhelming response here was that all are welcome, no exceptions. And really to all of us, that is what it meant. It was very tangible to us, and we understand that that's what radical hospitality means. And then there were some sort of explanations of that, right? So one of the answers we got was to accept people as who they are and meet them where they are on their journey. There was some discussion about it would be useful and helpful to institutionalize some particular protocols. For example, greeting new people. How do we greet them? How do we incorporate them into the church life? The idea is that the pastor and parishioners should model this mission statement. That should be radical hospitality. And then lastly, again, echoing the theme we heard multiple times, is to participate in community events and be really a model to the larger community, not just within our own community. That's it.
So what happens next? We start incorporating the input. We have been incorporating input from the survey and the listening sessions. We'll start to prepare the materials for calling our rector. So those include a portfolio and a profile of the parish, so that we'll put those out publicly when they're published. We're working on developing that and producing it, hopefully within the next month. And tick, 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 tick. So during that phase, we're going to be doing a lot of cranking out wordsmithing and developing our profile and portfolio. So you'll hear less from the call committee. We won't be giving weekly Bart announcements. So this is known as the quiet phase. Doesn't mean that we're not hard at work. We're going to be really working hard to get those out. That then will be submitted to the vestry and to the diocese for review, and then it'll be published and sent all over the place. And that's where people that are feeling called, will look through those to see, are we a church that fits them as a rector? We're expected to begin the call for a new rector in early autumn. So it should be up online and ready to go at that point. This puts us on schedule for having a new rector by the spring of 2023 is what we're hoping, yes. But it's all in God's time. It's Kairos time. It's not our time. We can't push that so much. But we're right on schedule where we have always been. And from the direction from the diocese, we're doing great. So that's the next steps. Lastly, really want to thank you for your participation in listening today, but that's not all. If you have any questions for us, now is the time that you can come up to the microphone and address us with those questions. Please keep your questions concise and to the point of what the call committee does. We're here to find a new rector and to represent the views of the parish. So that's our purview. There's a lot of things that I don't know about, and so I may not be able to answer those because I'm just a guy, right? I'm not in any. Yeah, I'm trying to deflect that. So, but in case we can't answer your questions, it's because we don't know, or that's not our purview. Or we're figuring it out, or we'll, vestry members are here, so they would hear this soon too, so that would be all right. But we're here to answer your questions about the call process itself. So, with that being said, do you have any questions? Please introduce yourself too. Oh, sorry.
My name is John Tomlinson. What is the process for getting candidates? Do we advertise? How does that work?
There's an Office for Transitional Ministry through the Episcopal Church that has a website that rectors who are looking, or not rectors, who are priests, are looking to find a new parish, will be searching that site, and they will look for that. So that's all done through the diocese and the national church, but the diocese is really heading for that. We cannot advertise, if we know somebody who's a priest who we like a lot, and we call them up and say, hey, there's an opening at our church. Yeah, we can't do that, because even when the priests that want to serve at St. Bart's, they have to go through the diocese first. The diocese, the bishop, and they select a group of ministers who will then be interviewed by us, or we'll go through and weed some out, and then the ultimate goal for us is to get down to the top 2 or 3 as a committee, and then we'll present those names, top 3 candidates, to the vestry, and then the vestry begins the process of negotiation of all the stuff that we don't have a purview over. So does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Brooke, you want to take this? No.
Hi there, I'm Lance Cleveland.
Hi.
Of course, getting 182% response is pretty phenomenal. And as an engineering manager, yet one more engineering manager, kind of raises the question of, you got a bunch of people who are not regular attenders, and they're probably weighing in there. Did you do a cut on the responses of people who are regular attenders versus those who are not, and was there any difference?
Yes.
You can answer that one.
You,
Or
what?
at least I can try. I can try to answer.
Yeah, okay. I'll let Brooke try to answer this one.
It's based a little bit off of memory, so I might have to, I can always come back with a more complete answer if I was totally wrong. But I think, so we did actually look. So the survey does have the ability to break down. One of the questions that was asked was, how frequently do you attend? And so we were able to look within those subsets. And really what we found is that the answers were, the priorities, right, which was what was one of the things that was ranked within that, were very similar. So I tend to think that probably they're, we did notice that perhaps there's quite a few people who are waiting. They're trying to make a decision about whether they will start to attend more often or not. I think we called them potentially a little bit fence sitters. So we're hoping to get the fence sitters back, if that helps. Yeah.
So I'd just like to say something. This is Bill Doggett. I'd like to say something more to that question, which is 157 is our average Sunday attendance, but our total Sunday attendance of people who attend regularly is probably a little more than double that, because most people do not come every Sunday.
Right, so that's what we did have a discussion about that as we were looking at the results. So we figured, 157 unique people, it's not the same every week, right? So we did figure, we were thinking probably 250-ish, so I'll take 300 because that sounds better. So that's either way, it's good. So I guess the other thing to note, and I think we did point this out on the slides, but to reach statistical significance for the survey, we really only needed 33% participation. So we, even if the 182% is a bit inflated, I think it's still statistically significant. That one's you now.
That was good.
Yeah. Uh-oh. This is a hard question.
You want me to answer this?
Yeah, you better
Okay, I
answer
better
this.
answer this. I'll step in for you.
I can't.
This is Jim Grandinetti. You started to answer my question. I was curious what role the diocese or the bishop had to play, how much we get to ask, or what do they help us filter things down? What's their role? What's our role when we think about who's going to be that pool of candidates?
What? Do you want to answer? Well, I could do that too, and then Costa can add. Okay, so Costa's going to come up and answer this too. But from the diocesan position is they're there to weed out any red flags, people who have had problems, and we don't want those on our list because that would be a waste of our time. So they will take all the people who are interested, and I imagine there will be quite a few because we're a strong parish, and that in a wonderful place with great people. So my sense is that there's going to be quite a few, and they will take those and weed out ones that would not be acceptable, not a good match for the diocese, because they have to serve the bishop too, and then for us. So they'll give us like the cream of the crop. So they do the initial run through and filtering, vetting of the candidates, and then we take that group and vet it further, and then give it to the vestry, which I will then give to Costa.
I'm Costa Dillon. I'm the senior warden. The reason we write the ministry, the profile, and is this is the package that goes together, and it will tell applicants what our financial situation is, our average Sunday attendance, what kind of ministries we have, and so forth, so that people who are interested in coming here as a rector have a as complete as possible look at what the church is. We certainly don't want to hide anything from anybody. We whatever rector comes, we want them coming with eyes open. The applicants, though, do not come to us. They go to the canon, to the ordinary, Gwen Lynch. She gets the applications, and working with the bishop, they will then determine who they think should be forwarded back to the call committee for winnowing. The call committee then will identify 3 candidates they will give to the vestry. And once those 3 candidates are given to the vestry will reach the final decision of who our preferred choice is. And once the vestry selects a preferred choice, then it's my responsibility to contact that person and discuss anything they want in details of date to come, salary, all that sort of thing. So that's the process in a nutshell.
Thank you, Costa.
I'm Marcia Harrod, and Costa answered this a little bit, but I am concerned about the cost of housing in California, bringing qualified candidates and being overwhelmed at what that really means. So.
Right, and that is a big concern.
I think that just a little bit. Yeah, that is a big concern.
Come on up.
Here, you should just take, yeah.
Get in your steps.
Yeah, yes, of course that's a concern here. The diocese has a range of salaries based on average Sunday attendance. So they set that so that the parishes within the diocese are kind of compatible with each other. And we are, a large parish in this diocese. I think we're in the top 3, even, post-COVID attendance dropping, we're still in the top 3. So we will offer a salary compatible with what we had before, most likely. It is known, sure, that it's expensive to live here. We do not give a housing allowance. It doesn't work that way. So it's the cost of living here is contained within the salary we're going to offer. And our hope is, maybe somebody will come from a more expensive place than this, and we're a bargain. It's hard to say, but certainly that's, people will come here. We're going to be straightforward with them about what costs are and so forth. And I believe, those of you more experienced, I believe some of that's in the profile. Doesn't it include the average cost of housing in the area and so forth? So that's there.
Hi, I'm Bob Leiter. I have a question. This might also go to Costa. You talked about the fence sitters, and I thought that was an interesting way to put it, because I know there are a lot of fence sitters, and I know they're probably on a spectrum. There are some that are like come irregularly, some that are not coming to church but haven't joined a new church, and then some that have gone on to another ministry. And my question is the vestry going to look at that issue while the rest of the recruitment process is going on, and see if there are some ways to perhaps re-engage members that aren't attending regularly or have taken a time out, and find out if there are ways to attract them back to the church during this period, because you still have quite a few months left before you get a new rector. So that's a question that I have.
So I'll give Costa a second to come up here if he wants to comment on that, but I can start, so I can also wear my vestry hat for a moment, I guess. And I would say that, we did just get these CAT results on Tuesday, and we are meeting as a vestry Tuesday. So I think we certainly will have to take a moment and think about them and think about how to move forward. I would say as a member of the vestry that I certainly would want to address these things, and as much as we can in the near term. Of course, obviously will need to continue to be addressed, right? But I'll let Costa answer, but that would be my perspective as a member of the vestry.
And you're always welcome to attend vestry meetings. Woohoo! Certainly, all you'd have to do is look around and see we don't have the same number of people coming on Sundays as we did before COVID. But we don't know why exactly people aren't coming. We don't know how many people are still not coming because they have a health concern of being here. We know it's a certain number of people because they've told us that they're not coming because they still don't feel comfortable being in a crowd. We've had an unfortunate rash of people passing away in the past year. And everybody knows we're in a transitory community with the military, defense contractors, and so forth, so people come and go. All churches have suffered a loss of attendance. That's a long-term trend that's going on in the United States. Religion has seen a drop in church synagogue attendance, and it's a post-COVID effect. Lots of things are going on. The hospitality committee has been reinvigorated. Other ministries are up and running. We're creating the new ministry for really active, energetic people who happen to be older than other people. Here, is that a good title? I'm not one of those. And so forth. And I think there's more going on than a lot of people realize, which is kind of interesting. We've realized we need to do a little bit more promotion of what's happening. And because part of that is, it is invisible if you're not coming. If you're not here, it's harder to see what's going on. So we're going to be working on publicizing a little more the fact that a lot of our ministries are up and running again or are underway, and that there's lots of opportunities for people to get involved in these things they mentioned, small groups and so forth. But until people, I think, feel comfortable in group settings, we're not going to get everybody back that we got before. And I think you all know that we've just kind of seen another spike in COVID. The San Diego School District's going to require masks again next week. That does definitely have effect on a lot of people. It's almost an hour. You can finish.
Okay.
And there is a lot going on here. So stop at a table. A number of us would be happy to tell you what's going on, and all you have to do is share it with a neighbor. But that wasn't my question. That was my pitch. I'm Jill Henderson. And so I've been here 34 years. So I've been around this block a few times. But I think what might be of interest to people is what happens between the time you get those 3 names and you pick, because there's a lot to that. Visits, listening to preaching, and all of that. And I think it's a really important part of the process that people would be interested in hearing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jill Henderson. And that is the most important work that we do. I mean, everything we do is important. However, the finding out who we are, we're kind of wrapping that up, and then getting the word out. That's important. But then, when we get the candidates, you're right. We have to. We can, but we're not really being advised to do this, to do visits to the parishes. And the reason that's not done so much anymore is because it's for the confidentiality of those priests. If we have 13 people show up at a parish and there's only 20 people in the audience anyway, that's kind of an indicator that the person is being sought out or has got an application in a call. So we're not going to visit parishes, but we will, since we have technology and everybody's online, we can see sermons, and we will be doing the initial, after we get the names, we'll be going through and looking at sermons and looking at how they fit the profile that we're trying to attract to this church. It's super important that we not take we might take the first person that answers the call, but we really want somebody who's a good fit, because if we get a bad fit, we'll be going through the process again shortly, and it would not work well for anybody involved, us or the rector, the new rector. So we really, that's the most important part, and that's where we're going to covet your prayers a lot for the committee when we're in the process. And we'll let you know that too. As soon as we get names that we're trying to figure out, we'll keep communicating regularly on what's going on. We can't say we won't be able to give you names of people. That's all confidential, but we'll let you know that we're going through that process. At this point, last question, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
John Tomlinson again. During COVID, we went online for a while, and I don't know whether the presumption is that the online congregation is the same as our in-person congregation, or if it's a different congregation at this point. But how were the online participants taken into account in the CAT survey and the listening sessions?
Yeah, for the CAT survey, it was all members of the parish were sent emails and contacted. There are some people who don't use online, so they were called, and some filled out paper copies of the survey. We contacted a lot of people who by phone who didn't have, like, don't use electronic media at all. And so I think we did a pretty good job of contacting people there. As far as who is still online, I mean, as somebody who was online a lot during the heart of COVID, and I know that number's dwindled quite a bit, so it's not as many people as we had before. Oh, sure. I'll let Brooke answer that, some more of that too.
I guess I also heard in your question, could we make a distinction in the CAT survey between those who are attending only online versus those who are attending in person? And there was not a distinction there. So I don't know that we would be able to, we won't understand that from this survey. We did in the listening session hold a couple of Zoom listening sessions. So presumably, you know, that would offer people who are only attending in Zoom because they're not comfortable for some reason or another, or are far away and not local, to offer their feedback as well. So those responses, we tried to capture them as well, though not distinct from the in-person. Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay.
How is it that, can we even determine how many people are participating online? I mean, so how do we have a way to count how many people are doing the services?
Yes.
Via.
Yes, we actually do have good numbers for that. I think John Luke might be able to speak to that, but yes, we are able to capture them. So we do have a sense of those numbers. If you want the numbers, go ask John Luke. He's right back there. Yeah. All right, but I am going to wrap it up because it's time. But if you do have a question, please just talk to one of us. We all have the blue name tags. I see Donna raising her hand at me. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brooke.